Guys, this weekend we saw one of the saddest events in MMA history. That being Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivak. But in other news, we did also see Lucas Tracy retire. And if you guys don't know Lucas Tracy, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows him by now, but Lucas was a good man. He didn't need to retire this early. I mean, I didn't see this coming at all. This really hit me by surprise, and I was shocked. I mean, Lucas was a great YouTuber, man. He was one of the reasons, probably the main reason I started this channel. And, you know, it's just sad to see that a week after I start this channel, the very reason why I started it is retiring. So, you know, it struck me. You know, I've been crying the last couple days, but I figured that, you know, in honor of Lucas Tracy, I will be making a ranking Lucas Tracy lore tier list. So, what do I mean by this? What do I mean when I say lore? I really mean that we're going to be ranking, you know, different catchphrases Lucas liked to use, different terms that he would throw around, you know, if you ever tuned into his live streams, you know, stuff like that. And also, before I preface this, let me just say that if you never tuned into a Lucas live stream, or if you never, you know, watched Lucas Tracy, you might feel a little left out here, but I also do feel very bad for you, because, you know, it's like right before you're hitting gold, and that being Lucas Tracy's channel, you gave up, right? You can't give up that easily, man. If you would have just gave Lucas a chance, you know, I know at first time I ever watched one of his videos, I thought, this guy's an idiot. Who is this guy? This guy's not even funny, right? I thought Guru was the funny guy, right? And Lucas is kind of the, you know, the default guy who's just giving his picks, and they're typically kind of, you know, kind of crazy. And so I was deterred, but then when I tuned into one of his live streams, I realized this guy does have a personality, and this guy is funny, and he was the best MMA content creator. So I am going to be honoring that. You know, I've been yapping long enough, but so we're going to go over some of these stuff. So for starters, you know, this one will hit home. The Real Food Cookbook, right? So where does the Real Food Cookbook go when it comes to Lucas Tracy lore? And this doesn't have to be, you know, meaning that it's a crazy lore. Like, it doesn't have to be something that you've never heard of in order for it to be ranked highly. It could just be that the term and the, you know, that the concept is pretty cool, right? And I think the Real Food Cookbook, I'd say that this was I'd say it was B tier, right? It was right in the middle, because you would see back in the day at the end of Lucas's videos, you would always see he would be advertising the Real Food Cookbook, right? He would be shirtless in his backyard or something. You know, he just got done lifting weights, and he'd be saying that, you know, if you're small and you're a skinny guy and you want to put on some weight, you gotta buy the Real Food Cookbook, right? You couldn't eat these processed foods. They had to be real food. And so the Real Food Cookbook, man, it just had some great recipes on there. I never purchased it personally, but you know, if you did, I'm sure you're still using those recipes to this day. I've heard about some great recipes like the cookies. I remember if you were a Lucas Tracy member, he did upload some of his beautiful recipes onto the channel. So I do remember the cookie recipe. It seemed pretty good. I never made it, but I might make it to honor him, you know. But yeah, I'd say it's about a B tier. You know, it's pretty good lore in my opinion. You know, something else that I always found interesting about the cookbook was that it was digital. You know, I would always think that, you know, the cookbook was a hard book cover, you know, this beautiful best-selling book, which it was a bestseller, I'm pretty sure, but it actually was digital, which was always, you know, interesting, just an interesting fact to add. And let's move on to the next topic. You know, this might be a little early, but I am going to bring out Marty Lewis. Now, Marty Lewis, this is a picture of when Marty Lewis, well, we already know what he did to Muhammad Ali, but I won't put down Muhammad Ali like that. But you know, Marty Lewis was just he was a boxer back in the day, in the Muhammad Ali era, and he was one of the most dominant boxers. And I think this piece of lore deserves to be in the S tier, because Lucas Tracy really brought Marty Lewis to life. You know, people forget about Marty Lewis. People forget, man, right? They forget about Marty Lewis, and they just don't give him his respects and his flowers. But Lucas always would do a good job of this, you know, answering questions about Marty in his live streams, and kind of bringing up his legacy and what he did. You know, his sweet pea, the sweet pea special that he would give out. You know, that is a term that literally comes from Marty Lewis, and people do not know that, right? But Lucas Tracy did a great job of, you know, making Marty Lewis's legacy just shine completely. And Martha Lewis obviously gave her respect, to Lucas Tracy for continuing on her husband's name. But it's just great to see what Marty Lewis, that Marty Lewis got credit for the things he did. And I'm very thankful about that piece of lore, that little piece of lore, right? But let's move on. For the next piece of lore, I'm going to be bringing up Lucas Tracy versus animals. Okay, now if you've been watching Lucas for a couple months now, you would probably have seen one of these videos at least, of Lucas versus animals. And I am going to be putting this in the C tier. Sadly, these videos were very entertaining just to see how Lucas's mind would wrap around the idea of, fighting an alligator or a giraffe or a whale, these different animals. And it would be fascinating to see how he would put himself into these positions where he would have to battle life or death in an octagon, I think it was, against these animals, right? And so it was fascinating, right? It was a fascinating piece of lore that if you were a Lucas Tracy fan, you would really enjoy these videos. But to the average viewer, I just don't think this is it's not deep enough into the lore, right? So I am going to be placing this in the C tier. Even though it is a fascinating concept, I will be placing it in the C tier. And for our next piece of lore, I will be bringing up Israel Adesanya. Now, we all know that, if you've ever watched a Lucas Tracy video, we all know that Israel Adesanya is not exactly Lucas's favorite fighter, right? He was kind of, he would kind of hate on him, right? He'd be a little bit of a hater. Towards Israel Adesanya, but it was with respect, right? He would respect the guy. He would always give him his flowers. And before I continue yapping, let me see. I'm gonna put this in the C tier, okay? We've got back-to-back C tiers. I'm sorry for that, right? But I just think that this was you'd have to be somewhat in the lore to understand this concept. But Lucas did give his flowers to Izzy, right? But at the end of the day, he would give his reasoning as to why he doesn't think Izzy is exactly the guy he's hyped up to be, right? He's not this magnificent striker or this middleweight GOAT, right? He was a 50-50 guy. He would win half of his fights, and Lucas respected him. But at the end of the day, I mean, you have to admit that Izzy is a bit overrated, right? And so that is fascinating to kind of delve into. And I did enjoy watching videos on Lucas's breakdowns on Izzy and stuff like that, But that's enough about Izzy. We don't want to give him too much time, And I'm going to move on to coconut water. Now, coconut water, this is an A tier. This is an A tier because if you would ever go into a Lucas live stream or one of these watch-alongs, I guess, with the cards, if you would ever watch a fight night with Lucas Tracy, he would always be sipping on his preferred beverage, it seemed like, right? People would call it out, say that it was probably soy milk, which Lucas wouldn't, he'd take offense to, and he would clarify that it is coconut water indeed. And, coconut water had these healing properties that let Lucas Tracy's hairline kind of nourish and, begin to fix itself, right? And so I feel like coconut water played a very important part, whether we realized it or not, in Lucas Tracy's life, right? It allowed him to speak for hours on end and be hydrated during his streams. So I just think that coconut water is an underrated piece of lore. So it definitely belongs in the A tier, in my opinion, And the next piece of lore we are going to be talking about is Lucas's 3 years of rusty kickboxing, right? And this, for me, this is about a B tier, right? Because you would watch Lucas's videos and you would always hear him or bring up this 3 years of rusty kickboxing that he had, right? And for instance, in the animal videos or in any video where he would be discussing, how he would do against another fighter, he would always mention his 3 years of rusty kickboxing, right? And how how he was indeed a mixed martial artist in the purest form. He was a pure mixed martial artist, but he did prefer the striking aspect of the game, and he was really getting into it back in the day. Those 3 years were a perfect time for Lucas to develop his striking, and it's something that he brings up a lot. It's something he was proud of, okay? And we need to acknowledge it. And so I did put it in the B tier because it was kind of, it was an interesting piece of lore that most people did know about. You would know that Lucas had those 3 years of rusty kickboxing, as he says, but it's not crazy. We can't give it too much respect, right? So it's about a B tier piece of lore. Smile and wave maxing. Now, personally, this is an A tier for me because man, I loved when you would ask, if you ever asked Lucas for a piece of advice, you know, when it came to picking up a girl or maybe going to a job interview or something like that, and you know, you wanted to really secure the date or the job interview, he would always give you this piece of advice that really does work, and that is smile and wave maxing. You know, you would just have to smile and wave your way through. You know, you might not be the Mr. Charming, or you might not be the most talkative guy around town, right? But as long as you smile and wave, you will always find success, and you will always be able to pursue your dreams, right? It's a very positive topic that Lucas Tracy would love to push, you know, during his live streams. And I don't know if you ever brought this up during a video, which is why it belongs in the A tier, but if you were a Lucas Tracy watcher and you did watch his streams, you would know about smile and wave maxing, and you would know how effective it was, and how interesting of a concept it was. So I do have to put that in the A tier to show it some respect, right? It deserves its respect, and so it's going to belong in the A tier for now. The next piece of lore I will be bringing up is the Lucas Tracy curse. This image is a bit crappy, but, you know, a bit shit, but we'll put it in the B tier, because the Lucas Tracy curse was something that was known all over, right? It was known all over, and it was very acknowledged by the MMA community that Lucas Tracy for a while could not get his picks right. Especially, it seemed like during last year, you know, the year of the fluke, as Lucas likes to call it, right? This could also be referred to the year of the fluke, the Lucas Tracy curse, but it was a bad year for him. I'm going to be talking about last year. It was a bad year for him specifically because, you know, it just seemed like with the Cyril Gahn pick and all that, it just wasn't going his way. He was not getting his picks right. And so that was kind of what started the year of the fluke, right? And especially with like Sean Strickland winning, which I actually did pick. You know, I do have to say that I really do have proof of that. But I did pick Sean Strickland to win that fight, okay? And it seemed like Lucas just couldn't get his picks right to save his life. And that's kind of what started this stigma around him, I guess you could say, that Lucas just could not pick his fights right. And, you know, the TikTok fan base kind of would say that, you know, Lucas is the most casual guy on YouTube because he couldn't get his main card picks right. And, you know, it was the main event picks, is what I'm saying. It was the main event picks that he just could not get right. And, you know, Lucas would glaze somebody. Like, even this year with Benoit Saint Denis, he would glaze Benoit Saint Denis and say that there is no chance that Dustin Poirier would win. He would have to slip on a banana peel, right? Benoit Saint Denis would have to slip on a banana peel to win this fight. And that was really the Lucas Tracy curse. It's a beautiful thing, and so I do have to put it in the B tier for beautiful. It's not quite A tier, you know, it's not too like unknown, and so it's gonna be in the B tier, right? Let me move on to the boxing channel, the Lucas Tracy boxing channel. Now, most of you guys do not know about this, but Lucas Tracy does have a boxing channel, and this is in the A tier because, well, he might have quit his MMA adventures, he never quit his boxing channel, at least from what I know. It is a little hard to find his boxing channel because he does go by a bit of a different name, but I won't expose him because I'm pretty sure we all know Lucas Tracy's boxing channel by now. Every time he would kind of just break down these beautiful boxing events, because we all know that boxing was Lucas's true passion. I mean, with the Rusty kickboxing, that kind of showed that he was into kickboxing, but more specifically boxing, right? Because that was the real technical sport, the real hardcore sport that, you know, hardcores are into. And so we could kind of see sometimes that the boxing aspects of Lucas Tracy boxing would flow over to his MMA channel. For instance, during these live streams, we would sometimes witness Lucas watching a boxing event, right? He would watch one of these boxing events with us and get to really show his love for the sport, which also did come from Marty Lewis. That's why Marty Lewis is in the S tier, because everything stems down from Marty Lewis. So he does belong in the S tier. And Lucas Tracy boxing, you know, I wish the best for Lucas Tracy boxing. I hope he keeps growing that channel. And, you know, it's sad to see his MMA channel gone, but Lucas Tracy boxing is still thriving. Now, let me move on to, let's see, the streak. The streak. This is C tier. I'm going to put it in the C tier. I got to move my face. All right, I'm not moving my face cam, but just so you know, the streak is in C tier, okay? Now, the streak, if you guys don't know, this is a pretty recent addition, a couple months ago, actually. I can't remember what fight night it started from. I think it might have been the Brendan Allen fight night against Curtis Blades, right? And I think that's when Lucas Tracy's streak, as he likes to call it, the streak, started. It's where he was picking these fights, and man, let me tell you, they were insane percentages of picks correct, right? So I just remember people were hating on Lucas, right? The typical narrative that Lucas couldn't pick his fights right, and he was coin flip Tracy, right? He would just coin flip, and it would be about a 57% pick rate for his picks. But the streak is what changed that narrative, and that was the beginning of this year, I believe. He just went on a complete streak where he was getting all these fight nights right. He would go 8-2 on picks, 10-1. He almost had a clean sweep on every fight night, it seems. So he really was on a bit of a streak. And then he did post a video about the streak, which made it mainstream. And that is kind of what sadly ended the streak, because he acknowledged it. And when he acknowledged the streak, that's when he went back to coin flip Tracy. And we kind of saw him, getting 60% on picks and stuff like that. So sadly, the streak was a great time to be alive, and it does belong. It belongs in the C tier, right? Because it's not anything too crazy. Maybe it's a B tier type of thing, but I'm going to put it in the C tier for now, right? Now, next up, man, we got something that this is what I think of when I think of Lucas Tracy, right? This is one of his favorite sayings. Peaches and Creamville, right? Peaches and Creamville. I will be putting this. Where should I put this? This is just such a beautiful piece of lore that I think it deserves to be in the S tier. Okay? And why do I think it deserves to be in the S tier? Because it's a saying that is just floating around the internet so much now. So it's maybe not hidden lore. It's not this hidden lore, but it is something that everyone knows about, right? It's massive to this day. And I really remember this getting emphasized during the Dustin Poirier versus Islam fight, where people that were picking Dustin Poirier, they had to be in Peaches and Creamville, and that is what Lucas Tracy was saying. And that's really when the term began to explode in popularity, because Lucas really brought up this idea that there's a fantasy land where these MMA people go, when they're picking Volk against Islam in the second fight, for instance, when Volk was coming in on 2 hours notice, 2 weeks notice. He was coming in, and you'd have to be in Peaches and Creamville to pick him. And fair enough, I was in Peaches and Creamville picking Volk to win that fight, because I was just, I thought Volk would somehow pull this out and win the fight. But, I was in Peaches and Creamville, and I think most people know now about this piece of lore, this concept, right? And I think we have acknowledged that Lucas Tracy is in Peaches and Creamville right now. He's sailed off into the sunset, and he's finally been accepted to Peaches and Creamville, where he can live out his fantasies for the rest of his life. And man, you gotta respect that, right? But I am going to move on from that topic to a very, 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 very important piece of lore that you would have to know if you watch Lucas Tracy. But this is Volk, right? I'm gonna put Volk in the B tier because it's not too crazy, but it is something that you would have to know if you're watching Lucas Tracy. And that is that he loved Volk, man. Volk was obviously Volk was his favorite fighter, but he did hold a special place in his heart, right? Volk held a very special place in Lucas Tracy's heart, and I think we can all admit that. Sadly, Lucas never got the Volkanovski interview, but I've seen that people are leaving comments on Volk's video really pushing for that interview, and it would just be a beautiful send-off to see Lucas Tracy finally fulfill his wishes. After years of glazing Volk, and it seemed like every live stream, Volk would be mentioned probably 100 times, right? And it was undeniable. His love for Volk was undeniable, and it's really sad to see that, he's gone before he even gets to interview Volk and, really share his deep connection with Volk. So that is going to be in the B tier, but it is something that I do value very much, right? Now, we are approaching the end here, but this is the second to last topic that I am going to be bringing up. Shamiel the Blob Gaziev. This is A tier, right? Why is this A tier? Because look at how massive Shamiel is now. Shamiel exploded because of Lucas's love for Shamiel, right? And this started earlier this year, right? During the Rosenstrike versus Shamiel Gaziev fight night. And I just remember, going through Lucas Tracy's predictions. I thought this guy was crazy because he picked Shamiel the Blob Gaziev, right? This guy who actually was the favorite for the fight. It seemed like Lucas might have even been picking him just because he was the favorite, right? He didn't really want to go with that underdog pick, right? And, we did shame him for that because he picked Shamiel the Blob Gaziev, and Shamiel, on his way out to the octagon, they told us about Shamiel's previous life where he was playing volleyball, right? He was a volleyball player. So this is a volleyball player walking into the octagon right now about to fight big boy Rosenstrike. You know, and so it really was a shock when we saw that Shamiel was actually very skilled, and Lucas knew it all this time. You know, sadly, Shamiel did gas out during that fight, but it proved to us that we were wrong about Shamiel, man. Shamiel is a great guy, and Lucas was, you know, he was the one to really explode Shamiel in popularity, and now we know him as Shamiel the Blob Gaziev, and we love him, man. So, I mean, Shamiel's a great guy. I just, you know, I hope the best for him. I know Lucas wants him to become the heavyweight champ, and I think he will become the heavyweight champ, actually. I think he has a lot of potential. He's probably the most dangerous threat to Tom Aspinall, and I think that's undeniable at this point with what we've seen. You know, just get that cardio up, and I think he might be able to be. I think he'll probably beat Tom Aspinall. That's not even that crazy to say. I just might have revealed the last thing. But let's just do it. Let's do it. This is the last thing. Muzzing. Muzzing is an S tier piece of lore. I know everyone knows about Lucas Tracy muzzing nowadays, but it's one of the most important things to know about Lucas, right? And it's undeniable that Lucas Tracy was one of the best muzzers in history, and he changed from his career of muzzing in public to MMA, and that's kind of what changed him a little bit. And, you know, sadly, we never really got to see a full muzz because Volk never won that fight that he would, you know, Lucas would always promise that he would muzz if Volk won his next fight, but, you know, I think it was kind of strategic for Lucas to win before Volk would fight, because he never wanted to go back to his muzzing ways, even though he did hit a little muzz for us as a result of Mick Parkin knocking out whatever can he was fighting on that card. But, you know, he did hit a little muzz for us, but it wasn't a proper muzz. We all know that Lucas is a S-tier muzzer, and it just wasn't a good muzz that he hit. So, I mean, muzzing is a very important part of Lucas's life, and I'm sure that now he has retired and he's going back to muzzing, and he's, you know, practicing his muzzing. Maybe he'll come back to us and make a return muzzing in public with Volk. That would be just a dream come true, but as of right now, that is an S-tier piece of lore, and so I will end it off here. I think this is enough lore that we've covered. You know, let me know in the comments if you guys have something even deeper into the lore, or if you disagree with one of my placements here, let me know about that. But I do have to say, man, Lucas, I am very sad that he retired. If Lucas ever comes back, it's going to be great, man. But we're going to be continuing on his legacy. We'll be using these terms, and we'll be using, you know, Crafty Vet, the outside foot battle. We got to continue what he brought on. We got to show his legacy to the MMA community and just show what he stood for. And it's sad to see that he's gone. I do hope he comes back. He was my favorite MMA YouTuber. I was inspired by him. I started this channel because of him. So it's a heartfelt topic to talk about, but I just wanted to do this to honor Lucas and show that he was a good man, right? He was the best MMA YouTuber out there, okay? I don't care what you think, right? And so I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I know it's a little crazy, but I also am posting daily MMA stuff and more normal stuff than this. So leave a like and comment if you like this video, and even subscribe, subscribe for daily MMA stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys like this. See you guys in the next video, and best of luck to Lucas, man.